Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this is going to be a great one. If you need some career transition advice and help in navigating the issues that involve career transition, and we've all been there, then this show's for you. Scott Doyne is with us, and he's not only a certified career coach, but he's written the book on Midlife Career Crisis, and we'll get to Scott in just a moment. But I want to just remind you that we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta, and if you are tired of the soul-crushing mega bank experience, and if you're at one of those banks, you know what I'm talking about. They don't really want to talk to you in person. And guess what? Renaissance does. That's how they do business. And what I've heard from the clients that I send to Renaissance is that they are big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. That's a magic combination that you might want to take advantage of if you are tired of the experience that you're getting for your business today. Go to renaissancebank.com, find one of their local offices, give them a call, learn more. I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. Again, I want to welcome Scott Doyne. Scott is with Doyne Career Services. He's also the author of the book, Exploring the Midlife Career Crisis, a guide to navigating the 4 stages of career transition. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, John. It's awesome to be with you.
Hey, delighted to have you, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope it helps people.
I'm certain it will, based on what I already know. Let's talk about you, and first of all, Doyne Career Services. So give a little bit about your background and your career journey.
Absolutely. And a lot of it's in the book, but I'll give you the Cliff's Notes.
Please.
I am now a full-time career coach. I work with executives as well as emerging leaders, specializing mostly in career transition in sports, media, and technology. Those specialties are not a coincidence. That is my background. And I spent 20 years, since we're talking on a Atlanta podcast, I spent 20 years with Turner Sports. And it was phenomenal, and I really enjoyed it. And as the cable business changed over time, I saw an opportunity to make a change. And this is where I've landed, and I really love the opportunity to help people every day.
And when you're talking about those 3 areas have a lot of change, a lot of growth, and change and growth create turnover and transition, right?
Yeah.
Disruption. There's another important word. Talk about that.
Yeah, each one a little different than the next. Sports, even when I started in it 25 years ago coming out of college, high demand, very competitive, tough to get into. So I work with young folks on figuring out how to break into it. Media is changing rapidly. Social media obviously has impacted the world. Podcasting has changed that world.
Yes.
Tech companies are entering into that space, and a lot of disruption and layoffs like myself. Technology is pretty much part of everything. And for me, I was in product management. I ran an analytics team, pretty familiar with that space. And as that grows, product companies are the biggest companies in the world now. That's an area where I think I can help people a little more than most.
Why career coaching? You've got an extensive corporate background, as you say, in sports business, high demand, particularly for those that are experienced
at
it. So why go into career coaching and, I guess, shift in that way as you did?
Yeah, there's a bit of magic to it in terms of how I came about this path, but I think a lot of it was always in me. I really loved people management. I loved having interns and mentees. I did a lot of mentoring. And there was a time at Turner where we were going through a couple of acquisitions, and I had some friends being laid off. And one of those hit me a little harder that, it's going to be me at some point. And so when that light bulb went off, I started doing some internal exploration as to what my next chapter might be. And along the way, I did run into a coach and had a tremendous session where I found some value. And at the same time, I looked at it and I thought maybe that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started training, getting more experience, and every step of the way, I just loved it more and more. And I think it's fair to call it my second calling after working in the sports industry. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Wow. That's terrific. So let's, before we get into the book, let's talk about why you should have a career coach. You've been both the giver and the receiver, as it were. So why is it so important to have a coach at any point in your career?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is why have a partner in something that you're struggling with? Why not have a partner to help you get through those transitions or tough challenges? And it's not for everybody. I'm certainly not here to force it, but I want people to know it's an option of one of the types of professionals that's out there that's trained, certified, and has an ability to help you. What I get in my feedback from my clients, I survey them pretty frequently. One, a structured approach to career navigation. So having a little bit of structure, a skeleton, a framework where we can move through that together. A sounding board, I get a lot. And then accountability partner. There's just certain things, if you're going to a personal trainer or maybe a therapist, those professionals that are experts at their thing, having one of those folks on your team, I think can create meaningful breakthroughs. It did for me, and I just want people to know it's an option.
Should I have a career coach even if I'm not in a transition? In other words, if I've not gotten the pink slip yet, and even if I don't think one's coming.
Yeah, I have folks in transition who have been on the involuntary side.
Sure.
But there's also a lot of people that feel, I hear the words lost or stuck, aren't quite sure what they're doing is what they want to keep doing. And that might not be a long-term engagement. It might be a session or two to sort through that in your head. What are my other options? What might I enjoy? And so I think there's some value to bouncing that around with somebody that maybe it's not your partner, maybe it's not your spouse, maybe it's not somebody at work because it's private.
Right.
So I do think there's value at any stage. One might call that an executive coach, and I think that's a subset of what I offer. But frankly, I don't love that term because it leaves everybody else out. What about the early career? What about the young professionals? And I think there's some real value in helping folks early in their career. There's a lot of pressure on them in terms of what they want out of life, what they want out of their job, how do they navigate corporate politics. And so I like career coach because it's open to executives and emerging leaders.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about the book. And I think what stands out for me is the 4 stages of career transition. Immediately, I want to know what those are.
Yeah, isn't that
right?
nice? Nice tease right on the cover.
Exactly. Makes you want to dive into the book.
And it's on Amazon, and in Amazon, you can always read a sample, and there's more information there. But it's also on my website now because I do want to democratize this information for people that maybe can't afford a coach or don't have time for it, or it's just not right for them. The value of the book is self-service and where you might want to pair it with a coach at some point. I wanted to get this out there as an opportunity to scale some impact, let people navigate transition on their own to the extent they're comfortable with that. So the 4 stages I deconstructed from my own transition. And thinking about that wake-up call I had, that stage is now called realize. What is that light bulb that goes off? And that might be involuntary, like I said, so it may be very obvious when it's time to change. But it also might be something inside, and how do you use tools and frameworks and a personal board of advisors maybe to have that realization that it's time for a change. Beyond that, it's explore, articulate, and then activate.
Got it. And as you say, that realization comes involuntarily. It comes, but you have those light bulb moments that on your own, even if you're in the middle of, as you say, you feel lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Something just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to dive into that a little more and let's talk to folks that are feeling that way. And like where you've talked to a lot of people that have been there, where does this come from? What caused it?
Yeah.
And how do you put some I guess definition around what to do next?
Yeah, I'll identify a few categories.
Yeah.
One I call the get ready category.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that do fear a forthcoming layoff. Let's say it's the media industry. There's a lot of that going around. So that fear can lead you in different paths. One path for those that want to be as prepared as possible is let's get ready. So I've got a get ready package, and here's some things that help you reduce that fear and anxiety so that if that does happen, you've got some things on the shelf ready to make a move. Maybe you're not ready yet. You want to ride it out. That's one category.
Right.
The other ones, I think I'm not where I'm supposed to be feeling. I trace some of that back to a path that maybe others told you should go down in your career. Parents, a lot of times, that you're living out what they want for you. But at some age, at some point, you're just not enjoying what you're doing, and you notice that in a clear enough way that you have that light bulb. And that's real. I don't fault anybody for it. It's not bad parenting. I think it just happens. And so if that's one of the buckets you might be in, you haven't really thought about what you might want to do. And so where do you start? As a foundational exercise, I like something called ikigai. And it's a Japanese concept, philosophically, the intersection of your strengths, your interests, your demand, like what you can get paid for, and maybe what the world needs. And so it's a Venn diagram. You know, imagine it. It's one of the exercises in the book you can look at or look it up online. There's a great book on it. But this, the Japanese have found, is the secret to a long, fulfilling life, is having purpose. And I believe that purpose might be at that intersection.
Folks, we're here chatting with Scott Doyne. Scott his firm is Doyne Career Services. He's also the author of Exploring the Midlife Career Crisis, a guide to navigating the 4 stages of career transition. We're not just talking about midlife, though.
Good point.
Yes, we are talking about midlife, but the principles in this book apply to anyone.
I think so.
Say more.
I think so. Yeah. Chapter 1, when is midlife?
Yeah.
And I go through a pretty scientific exploration of what that might be. What is life expectancy in different countries? Where are you in your life stage? Children, not children. Where are you in your psychology of your life or career? It might be something like I write about a parent's illness. That might be one of those wake-up calls. Inevitably, where I land, really channeling. Do you remember Craig Sager? The
Yes.
sports reporter?
Who could?
So we're in Atlanta, so I love that I can talk about Craig.
And what a fantastic man.
So he gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard at the ESPY Awards, winning the Jimmy V Perseverance Award. Right. And such a courageous battle he had with cancer. And he said, time is simply how you live your life. And I don't think I set about to write a book that has Carpe Diem at the core.
Yeah.
But I think when I look back at it, it's what I want for people is to take a shot at their dreams and live every day as if tomorrow is not promised.
Wow, great words. So we've talked about those individuals that are currently, seemingly happy, but feeling lost. There's maybe no impending doom that they can see. Let's talk about those folks that have just been laid off. The surprise has come, or maybe it's not a surprise, but it's come. The day has come. They're right in the middle of it. What advice do you have for those folks?
I think whatever they're feeling is okay. That's one thing I want to make sure to get across to people. And it is a spectrum of emotions, and I've seen it all. Absolute joy and liberation.
You did me a favor, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they think you did me a favor.
Some of that. There's a positive attitude. They're ready to move on to something else, and they're okay with it. But there's also anger. There's frustration. There's some self-blame. And people, if that's where they're at, they've got to go through that cycle and find a way to get that out so that they can possibly turn a corner and think more open-minded, more optimistically, that there are other options. The layoff is not the end, but possibly the beginning. And my hashtag is life after layoff. And I
love it.
I just celebrated my 2-year layoff anniversary last week.
Oh,
and
good.
I celebrated it. I am an idealist. I am an optimist. And maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea. I don't think you can convince people in that layoff situation that things are going to get better. I don't think that works. But letting them feel whatever they're going to feel, listening, being there for them, I think that can be just as valuable. And then they'll know when they're ready to turn the page and think about something new.
And I use this analogy deliberately because it is grief, but everyone grieves differently. And this is loss. And so it's a death of something.
It is.
Yep. And so what you're doing is validating wherever folks are and what they're feeling, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And I can only speak about my own experience directly, but I was with a company for 20 years. I loved it. I was not leaving. Like I did not want to go. And letting that come to pass and doing my best to reframe it, working with my coach, finding other ways to channel that energy. And then I think being open-minded, and for me, journaling led me to see that new opportunity when it came around, right? That visceral reaction I had when I was in that coaching session of, oh, that might be the thing. I don't think I would have been ready for that light bulb if I hadn't have made some peace with that potential ending that you're talking about.
I want to shift gears, Scott, and let's talk to business leaders that are in corporate they've gotten the list from on high. They've got to communicate bad news to individuals they truly care about. So what advice would you give to those business leaders on how to handle dealing with affected employees?
Yeah. And I've been there. I had a few rounds where I had to make that list myself, and it feels terrible. And so I understand that from the managerial standpoint. But however it might feel for you laying that person off, it's most likely going to feel worse for them. And so trying to equate your feelings with what they're going through, maybe not great, but the word that comes to mind for me is just empathy. Understand that they might be going through something very difficult, being there for support. Hopefully your company providing outplacement support, which I've come to learn a lot more about, and I respect way more than I ever had when I just heard the term way back when.
Right.
There's a lot of great folks out there that are helping people through transition, and it may be your company that's contracted that already, so you have that as a benefit. But if you don't, there are coaches around, and at least for me, I have lower tier pricing for people out of work. And so I think a lot of coaches that I know have huge hearts. It's a wonderful industry. I really love all the coaches I've met. It's a wonderful community. And so if somebody's going through that tough time, and maybe you're the manager that did let them go, and your company doesn't have a policy, maybe you make them aware that this space exists. Maybe you buy them a book. I want to find the right way to help people when they're ready for it.
Right. And again, back to the grief analogy, everyone's grief is different, even if it seems the same.
Yeah.
So,
I do see a lot of that, and it can change.
Yeah.
Maybe feeling good one day, but another day, or there's a trigger or something. I think LinkedIn is a tough place for people, like most social media platforms. And, and there's a lot of value there if you sort through it. I'm there many hours a day trying to find those nuggets to help my clients.
Yeah.
But if you're Joe or Jane employee that just got dumped, being on LinkedIn can be a little rough because there's some anger, there's some hurt, there's some frustration, there's some probably some bad advice out there. And so sorting through that can be very difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And your So when you're a team leader and you're giving that news, even if you've been laid off before, your experience is not the same as theirs.
It's definitely not.
Right?
And from my experience, once they know what's happening, I'm not sure they hear anything else.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because they're thinking about, what am I going to do?
Even thinking ahead, and I've had HR partners that are much more sensitive, which I'm thankful for. The sequence of who gets into the Zoom first can matter. If you're in person, where you sit, right? I remember one particular situation where if you're in a small conference room and the person you're laying off has their back against the windows and you're at the door, they feel even more trapped. Just maybe thinking through some of those nuances emotionally to make it less threatening, a little more comfortable. It may not have that effect. It may still go very poorly.
Yeah.
But having a little patience and empathy with the situation.
Yeah. Scott Doyne, folks, with Doyne Career Services. Scott is also author of the book, Exploring the Midlife Career Crisis. So what other messages do you want to make sure people get out of the book?
I think the availability of time for people, it's short supply. And so finding the right exercise for you, there's 8 exercises in the book. It may be the 5th one. It may be the 3rd one. And so skim through and see which one you have time to invest in. Some of them take 5 minutes, a little journaling exercise. Some might take a little longer. So see which one is right for you that might be the most valuable in your specific situation, because your situation is extremely personal, very unique. And so find the right piece of that for you. The other thing that might be inspirational is there's also 8 case studies in the book of some more famous people that have gone through career transition, everywhere from Whoopi Goldberg to Gandhi, Rich Roll, a fellow podcaster, Magic Johnson, Abby Wambach. There's some really interesting ones in there the more I dug in that people might identify and be inspired by.
Yeah, the one that caught my attention right off the bat was Pope Francis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ought to mention that one?
I'll just mention that he was a chemist.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And long ago, but people's path to where they are, even the most famous, quote, successful folks, always where they are today. And the truth is, everybody has gone through challenges and change and transition and layoffs and dead ends and personal heartbreak. So where they are today that might seem all wonderful and perfect, you don't get there without getting through some challenges. And hopefully people know they don't have to do that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your services practice. Let's talk about how you work with folks. And maybe that's where to start is, hey, I need some help with my career, whether a layoff is the issue or not, right?
Yep.
How does the conversation with you unfold?
Yeah, first I offer a free intro call to anybody, 20 minutes. They might not know what coaching is or how that works. They might want to have a little sample discussion. They might have questions. I can share more information about the business. So they get to know me. I'm not the right coach for everybody. There's a lot of wonderful coaches. So let them have that opportunity to meet me and see what it's all about. So that's first. If there's an interest, I would send a proposal. And as I mentioned, I have 2 tiers. The lower tier is for students, nonprofits, and people between jobs. It can be one session. It can be a package of sessions. Between those sessions, there's support that's outlined in the partnership. And it really is a partnership. It's very unique. I think everybody's an individual. I'm not going to force feed any particular exercise. It's based on your goals. We set up a draft curriculum, and then we can adapt that as time goes on.
Got it. And what you alluded to this earlier, but I want to make sure we underline it, underscore it for folks. I guess the best fit clients for you.
So in sports media and technology, I help people through career transition, and that can be executives as well as emerging leaders.
Yeah, got it. I would love it if you could share a success story that helps illustrate the great work you do. And obviously you don't have to get into names, but if you could share some circumstances that you've lightened someone's load along the way?
Yeah, it gives me chills every time. It's like that drive you hit straight down the middle that keeps you coming back to the course. I remember one in particular, somebody that did feel a little stuck, wasn't happy with where he was at. And the first question to answer is, what do you want? And that takes some time. It takes some of this exploration. We use the Ikigai Foundation, and that started to move him towards some clarity of what he was looking for. I think that clarity is underappreciated. Finding that and then focusing your energy on your job search in that direction creates the opportunity. So it's, what do you want and how will you get it? But he was as excited about finding the clarity as he was eventually when he found the new job that was a dream job for him.
That's really a great point, because that's really where the value is. I sit around and think about stuff like this. The value is, sure, what are the mechanics of getting to the next spot? But the deeper value, intangible value that you offer is really clarity around purpose and mission, and often in ways that person wasn't thinking, right?
Yes. And I think it's huge. I think it's elusive, and it still may be a hypothesis, which is okay. I don't want people walking away thinking that conviction and certainty is realistic in all cases, but a hypothesis gives you a path towards time management, prioritizing a certain path, and that potential for the most fulfilling future where you maybe don't have to hop around so much.
Yeah. Wow. Scott Doyne, Doyne Career Services. Scott is the author of the book, Exploring the Midlife Career Crisis. Folks, check it out. And we've got to give you, though, if you want to check it out, directions on where to go find the book and also where to find you, Scott. So let's do that for folks.
Yeah, the book's on Amazon, Exploring the Midlife Career Crisis. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so you'll find me there. Otherwise, doyneservices.com is the website.
Terrific. Scott Doyne Career Services. Scott, thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing, because this is important work for folks that are at crucial times in their lives and they need the messages that you bring. So thank you for that important work.
Thank you, John.
Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go for today. Speaking of books, I have a book out, and it's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. Now, if you're a soloist, a solopreneur, small professional services firm, and you've got issues around your value and client perceived value, and those are two different things most of the time, positioning, your business development, or your pricing, this book is written just for you. Go to thegenerositymindset.com and learn more about the book, learn where to buy the book, which is essentially everywhere, Amazon and all your major book outlets and your independent book outlets. Don't forget about them too. And folks, I also just want to thank you. If you're listening to the show, I want to thank you, because you've supported us so much over the years, and we could not be where we are without you. I think this is show number 830 or 25 or something like that. It's hard for me to even say those numbers, because I never imagined we'd get this far when we started the show. So thank you for supporting us in the ways that you have, because we couldn't do it without you. You help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. And you do that by sharing the show. You like us on social media. You send the show to folks that need it. And here's a great one. If someone's in career transition and needs to hear this show, please send it to them. And you also send us great guests. So thank you for all that, because we couldn't do it without you, and I'm just grateful. So thanks for your support. So for my guest, Scott Doyne, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.